And that's the basics, right? Whether you're using AI, or whether you're using automation, or whether you're using virtual reality and so on. So everything needs to be connected to that. And that's the only way you can convince a CRO or VP of sales and procurement managers, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
we actually tell
This is sponsored by the GTM AI Academy and AI powered GTM, where we bring you insights, interviews, and all the latest knowledge needed to thrive with go to market and AI. Hello, everyone. I am Coach K, and I am really excited for today's podcast. This is the GTM AI podcast, and I am here with Snehal and make sure I get your official title right, CEO and co-founder of MeetRecord, which I'm super excited to talk to you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing really well, Jonathan. Thanks for inviting me. Great to be here.
Yeah, man, I'm really excited. I know the audience, probably a lot of people don't know much about you or your company, but first let's talk about you. Then we'll jump into your company and your technology. But tell me more about you. Obviously, from your background, you've been co-founder of several different technologies, and you've been involved in the startup world for a while. So you're used to this game. But now with Meet Record, you just started this 3 years ago or so. Tell me more about you and like your own journey and how in the heck did you get to be in this AI startup world?
Yeah, so I have always been a startup person. I started my first company right in second year of my college. It was a internship portal back then, so we helped around 20,000 students find internships in 3,000 companies. That just
Wow.
came out from my own experience finding internships and how difficult it was. So just wanted to make it simpler for my colleagues and my friends. So it started with that, and that company got acquired in 5 years or so, 2 years after I graduated from college. And then I worked at a startup, which was founded by Stanford alumni. It was a very technical sort of a product. Basically, what you
Hmm.
see right now in Snapchat, those filters, we were building that for
Oh, fun.
those Nokia and Samsung phones, right? Yeah. And those flip phones they had. So we probably built
Mm.
filters and Snapchat filters for to run in that particular phone where probably we were constrained by memory. So they were probably 16 MB RAM or so, right? Not the 8 GB RAM that you see nowadays. But yeah, so that went pretty viral for that time. So it was used by around 3 million users. And post that, even that company got acquired, but I was more involved in the technology of it, where I helped it scale from around 30,000 users to over 3 million users. Then I
Wow.
worked on a bunch of ideas. I thought that like I always had these ideas in my mind. Worked on a B2C idea, which was mostly around finding nearby events. We always had this problem of what's the fun event to go on a weekend. So built a product around that. Uh, Unfortunately, it just scaled in like metro cities and it never became a real big thing. So we then pivoted to holidays, and from holidays, we actually had pivoted to a business portal back then. So yeah, bunch of ideas and found some early traction. They're profitable, but never hit scale. But like things suddenly changed in like 2022 when we started MeetRecord, right? So here we are helping revenue teams to capture insights from sales conversations, whether it be meetings, calls, emails, to automate coaching and find patterns to close deals faster.
I love it. I love it. So, have you done, we were talking before, going through your website, like Meet Record, what would be what's the main problems that your tech is solving right now?
Yeah. So the main problem is as after 2020, a lot of sales teams started being distributed or remote, and a manager would not have understanding of what's working exactly for them and what's not, who in the team needs help and where do they actually need it, and how can you ramp up a new salesperson quickly, right? So since you're working remotely or in a hybrid scenario, and a lot of meetings also started happening on Zoom and Google Meet back then, right? So that's what
Hmm.
we thought of, actually capturing a lot of conversations and then use AI at multiple levels, right, to solve these problems.
Do you tap into OpenAI or Claude, or do you develop your own engine, or tell me more of the AI side? What are you leveraging?
Oh yeah, so we were using OpenAI and Claude both. Claude more as a backup, OpenAI, we keep on basically experimenting right now, doing more of prompt engineering. But yeah, what we do is a little bit of prompt engineering and then a bit of fine tuning, right? Just to get those right results, right? Otherwise, the results tend to be very generic. So
Mhm.
that's what we use. And we use it at multiple levels, right? So whether it is automating coaching, generating deal summaries, generating a tailored coaching program, user performance report, and so on. Generative AI has been like crazy useful and beneficial for our customers to build those code features.
What's jumping into prompt engineering? Because this is a topic I could talk about all day long. I do a lot of prompt engineering for several different companies, right? So what I'm fascinated by is how much you can tap into the power of OpenAI or Claude or Gemini, or whatever the model is, using the wall of a prompt to be able to fine tune whatever response you're getting. Do you find a certain framework, or how do you think around prompt engineering to make sure you get that really good results versus just generic help?
Oh, yes. I think that comes through a lot of iteration. We have built our own RAG pipelines just to ensure that our AI models don't hallucinate. So there are strict bounds being set up for our AI models. So we limit the results to the specific domain around meeting, around conversations, and around sales. So that way they don't hallucinate. Yeah. And then we, of course, tune in basically our prompts over multiple calls. We have analyzed over 3 million call data points. We use that to actually fine tune and make it better. Again, a prompt engineering, I would say, is the starting point, right? And I think it's a very low cost thing to do. The next step would be fine tuning, which means we have already got a lot of results. So we use those results to train those existing models, some open source models as well. So we are trying out with Llama 3.1. But yeah, building our own model, that's crazy. It would take 50 million, $100 million to do that. Yeah. I mean, I think you can get like crazy results with just prompt engineering and fine tuning. Yeah.
So when you say fine tuning, like I'd love to dive in more to that. What does exactly does that mean? Because I think to people out there who are new to this or don't know what that means, does that mean, as an example, you have a list of 100 calls, and as a result of that, you have all this data and content you use to train the model? And if so, does that sit in some sort of data bank and then you use RAG to access it? Or like, how does that work? Because ChatGPT only has a context window of so big. So walk me through the process of how do you fine tune the models for what you're talking about besides prompt engineering?
Yeah. So what we do is basically we have got a lot of responses already for, okay, to get more deeper into it, right? So what we do is we analyze the call transcripts. We figure out what were the questions which were asked by the sales representatives. And we also figure out the answers which were detected. That actually forms data for our training, for our fine tuning. But we have a layer where we actually manually skim through at least 1,000 to 2,000 responses. So while fine tuning, we take a base model. It could be Llama 3.1. It could be ChatGPT as well. It could be a OpenAI model as well. And then we give this set of 2,000 uh, responses, questions and responses, and queries and responses. And then the model gets fine tuned. So it understands the context of what domain you are in, what were the general questions being asked, and so on. The results are substantially
Yeah.
better with that. Just that there's a manual vetting, there's a manual vetting which happens just to ensure the prompts, the 1,000 to 2,000 prompts and responses that we have given, right, they are accurate to some extent. And so
Right.
it makes better, which makes the whole response better. Yeah.
What's funny about this is like in enablement, when I do competency models, as an example, I have to give both good and bad examples of a competency
Right.
for a human, not for AI. Because
Yeah.
when someone's getting learning over a new concept, they need to see both what good looks like and what bad looks like.
Oh, yeah.
With AI, it's funny how similar it is because all I need to do is give it that same thing. So I will make sure I'm repeating because this is what I teach in the academy is the same thing.
Yeah.
We don't do it to the length that you do, but it's the same concept, which is basically what I'm hearing is you have all these call transcripts. You actually figure out all the questions being asked, all the answers being asked. You
Yeah.
limit those. So instead of having an entire transcript, all you're doing is looking at questions and answers. That's it. And then you take that into a prompt, a power prompt, and then that has like a list of all these, like, here's good, here's bad. So it's this
Yeah,
massive prompt with all these examples, and then that fine tunes the model automatically through your system,
exactly, exactly,
right? Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
That sounds right. Cause like when I teach this, because I teach this at a university level and this kind of stuff, I do the same thing. We don't do that. I don't have like hundreds of examples, but I do find that having even 3 or 4 examples of here's what good looks like, here's what bad looks like, or here's a good question, here's a bad question, or here's what the response should be, or here's what the response shouldn't be like that. It's amazing how powerful the AI can be once it knows where good or bad is. So
I agree. I agree. And as you scale that examples data, you take it from 3 to 50 to 1,000. We've seen around 1,000 or so, the results start becoming really good. So in the responses which are generated by AI after fine tuning, after let's say a data point of around 1,000, the results tend to be really good. The hallucinations come down drastically, right? Yeah.
when you say 1,000, you mean 1,000 questions?
1,000 questions. Yeah. 1,000 questions and
Crazy.
responses. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you have someone like, let's just say, for example, most people have Gong, Chorus, or something like this. And let's just say they barely got Gong, so they don't have a lot of recordings or transcripts yet. Do you have defaults that you look for that help in general until you get enough to customize it, or how do you apply that to each company you work with?
Oh, yeah. And that's a very interesting question. So, of course, we have worked with similar companies, right? So, if you are a SaaS software company or you're a company in fitness sector, we have plenty of companies which have worked there, and the data models have been trained on those in a very anonymous and in a very secure way. That being said, what happens is can't expect in the domain of AI, you can't expect results on day one.
Yeah.
We take around 2 months, which would require at least 100 meetings to happen, right? So after 100 meetings, we have very strong data of how your coaching program should be, how you should run your coaching initiatives, how should the scoring being done, and so on. At the same time, we do this fine tuning bit with the AI call scoring also. So we have this pretty interesting feature where, so currently the managers, they used to go through the calls and they used to score them manually. And that used to probably take 10 to 15 hours
Right.
per week for them. So what we have is automated call scoring where the AI scores the calls. And in case, of course, the AI won't be perfect in the first week. So the manager can tune the score and they could say that, okay, no, this particular coaching point deserves 3, not 5, right? And the AI learns from that, right? Post like 100 such calls after 2 months, that it's fantastic. It's quite automated, streamlined, and yeah.
How do you, because most users aren't familiar with AI, this is still a new world, I find, for not a lot of people. How do you help people fine tune that? Because I think something I hear a lot from people is that they're like, how do I trust the AI? And what you're saying, which I totally agree with, which is you have to tune it, you have to make sure it's to get feedback and is it accurate? And then what do we need to tweak to get it there? Like, how do you help people know what to do to make it more accurate so they can trust it? Does that make sense? Because like I am a human coach. I do coaching all the time, and I'm the one who puts together, at least in
Yeah.
the past in my enablement function, I'm the one who puts together those scores for the manager or for the rep or for whoever to score these people. And that's the question I have. I'm always asking myself is like, how do I make sure the AI is as accurate as possible so that I can comfortably trust it to grade all the calls and I can deep dive into 1 or 2 or whatever calls I need to deep dive into. How do you do that? How do you make sure the person who's not used to AI can help fine tune it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it boils down to making a very easy user interface for them. So it should feel frictionless. And when we onboard them, we tell them that it would take 100 calls for us to give or for the AI to give really accurate results. Till that time, if you could just take out some time, go through 10% of your calls, which is not much, which could be 5 to 10 calls a week, just go through this course. If you find something very much off, you can just change the slider from 5 to 3, right? It's as simple as that. So if you make it like really simple for them, they would be happy to do that. And they also see the benefit of it in probably fifth or sixth week, right? And they see that, okay, it's getting better. So that makes them to actually fine tune or correct it even more because they see that, okay, post 2 months, 3 months, there is going to save crazy 10 to 15 hours per week for myself, right? So that's one way to do it. Just make it slightly delightful and very easy for them to actually make those adjustments.
Yeah, I love it. Going into your website, I'm seeing things like you have dashboards, You have CRM automations, you have CRM autofill integrations, you have performance reports. Like there's a ton of stuff you're doing, which is awesome. Like I love seeing this. What I have found is that AI is able to fix problems that most people haven't fixed for whatever reason. Like for example, coaching. In the Gong world, you have to manually go in and score a call, right?
Yeah.
So you're not able to. It requires a human to do a certain part of whatever the process. Or CRM data entry is an example. No one that I know of measures how much time it takes for someone to fill out the CRM, but everyone knows it takes a lot of time. But no one actually measures it, so you have nothing really to measure against. So when you go into a company and you're saying, "Hey, we can help you with this thing," but they're not measuring anything, how do
Yeah.
you show ROI with people to say, "Here's the power of what MeetRecord has because we can impact this and this." Does that make sense? Hopefully.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So I think to answer, yeah, there can be two approaches and we use both of them. So there's a qualitative approach, there's a quantitative approach. Basically, we would get any of the managers or if the sales reps on the call and just ask them, right? Like how much time are they spending, right? The thing is, they realize, or we just ask them to look at their CRM. Most of the times, the sales reps would just write that the meeting went well. Next meeting in the coming month. Those data points itself, those anecdotes itself, is like good enough to convince a manager or a VP sales to understand that the sales reps don't like or like to spend time on doing repetitive, mundane tasks. And the second bit is we have gone through multiple Gartner reports where they have analyzed this. For example, there's a pretty interesting number floating around that a representative currently spends like 10% of their time just pushing things into the CRM. And that's a good number of time. And more than the time, I think it makes them actually tired and be a little less ineffective in their next calls or next day. And we just want to save their energy, right? So no salesperson want to do a repetitive mundane task, which is very task, right? So that's like an approach we use. It's pretty straightforward. And the sales leaders want they let's say decide on a lot of strategies based on the CRM data. And if their data is
Yeah.
inaccurate, inconsistent, their forecasting, their analysis, their plans for next quarter won't be accurate or won't be good at all. They understand the problem that way.
The question I have then is more of a philosophical one, I guess you could say. But I've been asking this question a lot around AI in general. But this is a good
Yeah.
example of the same thing, which is what is the value of a decision? What's the value of speed of a decision making process? Again, these are things that people know naturally that it's valuable, but we don't
Yeah.
measure it. You know what I mean? There's no, for example, most teams take a lot of time having meetings to update each other on whatever the heck is going on. But when you have some sort of automation that helps capture the information so you can have what you need to have, usually from a sales rep, but it gets automatically done by an AI, it eliminates a lot of fluff because you're not having to have meetings anymore. But no one measures what's the cost of the meeting. But beyond the cost of the meeting itself is the impact or the value of the information that people are getting so they can make the decisions they need to make to move forward in whatever they're doing, leaders on down to individual contributors. So do you see that same thing to where there's this value of the big stuff, like make a decision is a big thing. We don't measure it. Like, how do you have that conversation with customers when you're talking to them saying, we're going to give you more of this that helps you obviously make better decisions, which helps you with business. Like,
Yeah.
what's that conversation like?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, I can understand what you're saying. Basically, like, how do you actually figure out what's the value of insights that you have got, or how do you figure out the value of the time that you have saved? One way we generally ask our customers is just look at what happened quarters ago, right? And then use the software and see how do you feel about it. Find your key metrics, right? For most of the companies, they do look at the number of deals a salesperson is handling, the number of, let's say, the sales cycle, right? The number of
Mhm.
weeks it took for a salesperson to close deals, right?
Right.
A lot of decision making still happens on numbers, right? So we tell them, look at your data like 2 months ago, and then look at the data after 2 months. You will see a difference, like how this is impacted, how many deals now a sales representative can handle. how has the sales cycle being impacted. But yeah, a lot of things are mostly felt rather than actually like directly shown in numbers during the sales process, right? Post 2 months, it's a completely different process. And that's the case with AI, any actually AI and analytics tool, right? You won't see a result immediately or in the demo or next day after onboarding. You have to wait, you have to give it a quarter, you have to give it 2 quarters and then compare.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So the how do I say this? You have an AI background, like an actual engineering background, correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you find that most people, when they try to grasp the value of what AI can do, is still trying to put those two together? There's what is the value of AI? What do you say to people that are like, how do I trust it? What's the value of it? And why shift to an AI native tool like MeetRecord versus whatever other tools are out there? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it still boils down to basics, right? When customers are looking to buy our software, they need to be convinced on how much time they're going to save or how much time is their team going to save post using our tool, and how much revenue they could make, right? Right? Post using a
Yes.
tool. And that's the basics, right? Whether you're using AI, or whether you're using automation, or whether you're using virtual reality and so on. So everything needs to be connected to that. And that's the only way you can convince a CRO or VP of sales and procurement managers, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
we actually we of course have a free trial for that, right? And when their team actually uses our tool, they can see substantial time savings being done, right? On updating CRM, right? On
Mhm.
actually scoring the calls. That time savings itself is worth the money that they are paying. So we make an ROI case with that. And then anything which is extra in terms of insights that could have helped them sell more or close more deals, that becomes a cherry on the top. And over time, they value our product that way. And yeah, that's how it goes.
When you have so let me give you an example. I'm big into competency models and to
Yeah.
and the environment and the process and like systems. And I don't mean systems as in technology, but systems as in way of working, how things work and make sure they work really well. With the AI, when you do coaching, for example, doing a call by call review is helpful, but then you have to have the opportunity context. So, if they had 10 calls before, does the AI have all that context in order to give the right coaching? So in stage 5 of whatever the process it is, that it has the context. Because a human, I would know the context of the rest of the deal, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the AI doesn't necessarily have that. What's your thinking behind making sure that? Because I see on your website, also, one of the things you have is like the deal health scores and all that kind of stuff. How do you think about making sure that the context is there so that when you're giving feedback on the opportunity that it has what it needs to give the relevant information? Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. I think context is pretty important. So if I'm in the first call of the deal, when the call is getting scored, we do share what actually happened in the previous calls as well. Even if they were handled by some other salesperson, we do add that to our query document, if you may say, the embeddings, a very technical term, right? So that all the data is converted to embeddings and they
Yes.
they are part of the query that we are making, right? We do share the entire context of the deal, right? So our tool connects with CRM, so we have data from the CRM, we have
Right.
the pre summaries, we have the previous transcripts of the call, and that is being sent to actually rate the call. So a call is rated that way. Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. We use RAG, I would
Yeah.
say, to data context and in the form of embeddings, and then query on it.
Yeah. It's funny because, like, when you think about the normal way of coaching, like for me, example, most of the time, if I had to learn about a deal, I'd either have to be a part of the calls, listen to the calls, or get the information, the download
Yeah,
from the
yeah,
sales rep because the CRM entry was usually horrible.
yeah.
So
Right.
the only thing I could get it from was from the sales reps. When you think about AI having the ability to know not only the CRM data, but also the transcripts themselves, it's just that's really all you need. And then emails and probably some other communication. But besides that, once you have that, you have most of the context of what you need, which is fascinating to think about. When you think about where things are going with AI. I know you're deep in the AI world as an engineer and obviously the CEO. Like, and I also know that a year in the AI world's like light years in normal world. But where do you see things going in the next year for companies in general and technology? Where do you think things are going?
Yeah, what I feel is any repetitive or let's say mundane task that did not involve any creativity, right? And to some extent will be automated with AI. That being said, I strongly feel that AI will not replace jobs. So I feel the way we also work as a company is we want to help the salespeople, right? We don't want to replace them because there's substantial creativity involved in actually doing sales, and we understand that. We just want to build tools for them which can automate and take away those boring, mundane tasks, right? The way we look at it on the JDM side is there are multiple mundane things in the AI stack, right? Which could be generating a sequence of emails. It could be generating a quotation document, which is fairly standardized with minor changes. It could be, let's say, changing a stage of the deal, right? Once the deal
Mhm.
moves from demo to pricing, right? A lot of this repetitive, mundane tasks can be learned by AI and it will automate all this, right? So AI will start affecting each and every layer in the GDM tech stack, but it will take away those boring tasks. And in the end, basically, what I feel is the sales representatives will have more time and they can use those time to do more sales. Managers will have more time and they could probably figure out how they can close deals faster or strategize things around that, right? So it's a then win for
Mhm.
everyone. Yeah.
Um, I remember, I shouldn't say I remember, I've been listening to some fascinating conversations from people around AI agents, or the ex-CEO of Google was talking about instead of going text to image or text to video, it's going to go into text to action. What kind of thing do you see, like, when, because you're like in that world of
Yeah.
automation,
Yeah. Yeah.
do you
Yeah.
see a time where MeetRecord goes beyond what it does now and it goes from text to CRM entry to text to whatever action the salesperson needs? Is that a direction you see yourself going?
Oh, yeah. So basically, we are moving in that direction. So, for example, if a sales representative at the end of the call says that, as a next step, let's schedule a call for next Wednesday at 8 p.m., automatically we will get that context and we will do it for you, right? We are slowly moving from setting up, from actually deriving those actions to actually setting up those on your calendar, on your meeting, generating reports, creating quotation documents, and so on. So that automates few things. The other things are, let's say, if uh, a customer mentions that we are checking out your competitor and we feel like they're pretty good, and it's a high value deal. Assume it's $100,000 deal, right?
Right.
Immediate alerts goes to the manager or the VP of sales, and let's say a deal room would be set up where everyone important in the deal is there on the Slack channel, and they can then discuss to figure out how they can save the deal. So there are certain automations like this which will be set or done automatically rather than doing this manually. Because if you're handling tens and 20 deals probably in a week, you tend to miss out on certain small things, which could impact you and make a difference of tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars for you.
One quick question. I know that you talked about before, you offer a trial run. So if anyone wanted to try this out, they could obviously go in and do a
Yeah.
free trial to get a feeling of what the heck this is even. Because again, for me as an AI power user, I'm used to it, but a lot of people are still like, how in the heck does AI stuff work? Or I should say, beyond ChatGPT, like how does it work inside of my own tools, my own systems? And so obviously having a trial run, you guys would be awesome. What's the best way to get a hold of you specifically? Just through LinkedIn is the best?
Oh, yeah. Just I'm available on LinkedIn or Twitter, right? I guess most of your audience will be on LinkedIn. So just DM me there.
Nice. I love it. I'll also include the website to the company as well. And then, oh, sorry, last question I was going to ask you. I was had this thought. I don't want to leave without asking you. When you have your prompts, what? And I don't want you. You don't have to give me the secret sauce, obviously, because that's your company. But what's the length of some of the context built prompts of questions? Are they like human, so freaking long when they get tuned? Tell me about the length. Are they huge?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Over time, our prompts have become longer, right? But basically, we're sending a good context window. So we have this feature called Ask Anything. So what we wanted to build is like a supercomputer for the CRO. So if the CRO wants to know how's my pipeline looking this month, we should be able to send all the CRM data and all the transcript, call data, deal data to be able to give you a result. Okay, these 3 deals seem to be on track. These 5 deals seem to be at risk. So yeah, our context window the embeddings that we are using in RG, they tend to be pretty big. So they would run into pretty tens of thousands of tokens.
Yeah,
So
it's
the trickier
fascinating
bit
how
is
yeah,
how do you figure out those important snippets of what data needs to be sent? And that's
right.
where embeddings actually help with respect. So whatever a query a person has written, we figure out what is relevant for that and just send only those data to our embeddings maker and create embeddings. So that's the trickier part, like figuring out what data to be sent, which is of high value. And that's where the machine learning models comes in. Yeah.
It's fascinating. I love it. Snehal, I just want to say thank you for joining me. I'll make sure we have all your contact information and obviously your website as well. Excited to what you guys have coming. Like this kind of thing is the thing that I just can nerd out on all the time. So I love it. So thank you for joining me for this. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the GTM AI podcast. Please follow, subscribe, like, comment, and come back for more.